Good morning, everyone. Welcome to 1111 Downtown. I'm Tom McDermott, the pastor of the 1111 community, and one of the associates at First United Methodist Church in Fort Worth. I'm so glad you decided to join on this Sunday after Christmas. Merry Christmas to you. I hope that you had a beautiful Christmas this past Friday and a great holiday weekend here and coming up the great holiday week that's coming for you. I know we've all had to adjust to this reality and how we celebrate Christmas with our families. I've heard from some of you. I know that you had some online gatherings, some Zoom gatherings. I know that some of you were able to have some socially distanced gatherings outdoors, and some of you are traveling on the road. Hope that you are being safe and that things are going well for you as well. We did kind of a drive-by Christmas with our family, and then with our extended family, we had one of these sort of chaotic Zoom gatherings, which was a lot of fun. So I hope you had a good Christmas and that you're doing well. Just again, so glad that you joined in this morning because we don't normally meet on this on this day after Christmas, this Sunday after Christmas. Typically on this one and on the Sunday after New Year's, we generally gather as a church-wide group in the sanctuary for just one service. All the different worship communities come together and we just share. We have some special stories and some special music and celebrate the time together. But of course, we can't do that this year. And so we're doing our own individual things, which has given us an opportunity to look back on the year and also celebrate some of our best music videos, which we'll talk about in a minute, and to have some highlighted sort of special moments from the year. So we're glad you tuned in, especially glad if you're visiting for the first time and tuned in with us. We want to send you one of these tumblers, one of these 1111 tumblers. I thought I had run out of them for the past few weeks and was about to order more when I found I had misplaced a whole case of them. So we got more in, and those of you who've ordered them, we'll be getting them out to you soon. And if you're visiting with us, we'd want to get you one for free just as a special gift and appreciation for you joining in. Hope you find this morning a blessing. Give us your address information and we'll get one out to you. Thanks so much for, I'm just going to take a sip. These are really wonderful. And thanks so much for joining in with us. So we got a special Sunday today, not a whole lot of announcements, but we would like you to take an opportunity, in addition to registering, to take advantage of the online offering buttons there. And if you can, we're coming to the end of our year and finishing up our budget, of course, trying to tie up all the loose ends and finish strong. So we appreciate your support in that way. And then just to let you know that this morning we're going to look back at some of our favorite videos and share a few stories and a few highlights of maybe a couple of lessons that are takeaways for us this year 2020 and as we move into the next year. Sharm is going to bring a poem in just a minute, and I want to say that we want to say a special thanks and appreciation to Sharm. Most of you all know Sharm is retiring at the end of this year, so just a few more days, Sharm. And she has been such a great part of this team in 1111 for the 7 years that I've been involved with this community as its pastor. And she's been a part of that team with me and Brad, and we just couldn't do it without her. She's had such a central role in both the creativity and imagination and just her input. She's also been such a major role in our church, our larger church, as community advocate, connecting us with those particularly in poverty and in transitional situations in the community, and her work with grief work. So we have a big gap that we're having to fill in her absence, but we'll do that. But we just want you all to have a chance to say your appreciations to her as well. And then she's going to be up here in just a minute to share something. So thank you again, Sharm, so much for being a part of this. She'll continue to be a part of this community. Of course, she still lives in the area and will continue to visit with us, and we'll see her around. But we're going to miss you as part of this leadership in this worship service. So thank you, Sharm. All right, good to have you with us again, and look forward to being with you when we can in the near future. Blessings. We'll see you in just a minute.
Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving, it doesn't matter. Ours is not a caravan of despair. Come, even if you have broken your vows 1,000 times, come yet again.
Well, hi, everyone. This is my last week on staff at FUMC, and therefore it's my last time to appear on the video as part of the 1111 team. And I just want to thank you, Tom and Brad, for letting me play along. It has been a wild and wonderful ride, and I will never forget the joy that I have felt in being a part of all of this. To all of you who are part of the church, I'll be joining you each Sunday watching while we enjoy what the team has put together for us on the videos, and then waiting together for when we'll be back in person, and we will be. As a farewell, as a Happy New Year, I want to leave you with this poem, a favorite of mine, from Mary Oliver. It's called When Death Comes. She faces death, as we all must, but out of that, she asks, what about life? When death comes, like a hungry bear in autumn, when death comes and takes all of his bright coins out of his purse to buy me and snaps the purse shut, when death comes like measles pox, when death comes like an iceberg between the shoulder blades, I want to step through that door full of curiosity and wonder. What will this be like, this cottage of darkness? Therefore, I look upon all of life as a brotherhood and a sisterhood, and I think of time as merely an idea and of eternity as another possibility. And I think of each life as a flower, as common as a field daisy and as singular, and of each name as a comfortable music in the mouth, tending as all music does towards silence, and of each body as a lion of courage, precious to the earth. When it's over, I want to say that all of my life I was a bride married to amazement. I was a bridegroom taking the whole world into my arms. When it's over, I don't want to wonder if I've made of my life something particular and real. When it's over, I don't want to find myself sighing and frightened or full of argument. I don't want to end up having merely visited this life. Mary Oliver.
Well, the rain, it keeps on coming down. It feels like a flood in my head. And that road, it keeps on calling me, screaming to everything lying ahead. And it's a winding road I've been walking for a long time. I still don't know where it goes, and it's a long way home. I've been searching for a long time, but I still have hope. I'm gonna find my way home. On top of the hill, and I can smell the ocean, the salt in the air, and I can see you driving there, washing your car, and I can see winding road I've been walking for a long time. I still don't know where it goes, and it's a long way home. I've been searching for a long time, but still have hope. We're gonna find our way home. I've been searching for a long time, still have hope. We're gonna find our way home. I've been searching for a long time, still have hope. We're gonna find our way
Hey everyone, again, so good to be with you. I want to say again thank you to Sharm for that poem and for her thoughts this morning. That is such a great choice for a poem this morning to be read. The poem by Mary Oliver, When Death Comes. It seems an odd juxtaposition to put that next to the birth of Christ, this celebration of Christmas, and now we're talking about death. But what Mary Oliver says is that in life, when difficulty comes, when challenges come, even as death comes, what I want to be remembered for is that I was always married to amazement, that I was always seeking and being connected with wonder. I mean, that's the journey of faith, I think. And so even in a time like this, as Ross Gay would say, what better time to be thinking of delight, of finding delight, than in a time such as we find ourselves now. So that's what I want to think about with you this morning. A couple of takeaways, 3 lessons that we might take away, and a look back at some of our favorite music videos in the process. And I have to say right up front that this is not what anybody expected coming into 2020, right? I mean, if you look back in January at my first Sunday of the year, I mean, my theme was, how do we find a clear path? Because 2020, how do we find a clear path, a clear perspective in this divisive, polarized world? Well, none of us knew just how murky and how muddy and unclear and uncertain 2020 would be. And the chaos and the difficulty and the pain and the loss, it's been overwhelming for so many in so many different ways. You know, we always look forward to the Christmas card that the Jolin family sends out to a lot of us. And Brian and Jennifer and Thomas Jolin, who are members of 1111 and longtime members of the church, they always put out these great cards. This one this year, I think, just nailed it. So I want to show it to you. I mean, isn't that crazy? That's perfect. Does that not pretty well capture what we feel? But here's the thing that I want to, even as we feel that way, even as we feel, we wish we could just burn it all down. We wish we could just throw it out, have a do-over. The reality is, we have an invitation to take what we've learned and to continue to build into the reality of life's uncertainties, to move into 2021 with a greater sense of confidence, of trust, as we just got to talking about in the Advent series, a greater sense of confidence and hope in the future because of how we participate in it. So one of the things that we've certainly picked up from this reality is that we are somehow all interconnected, that we cannot escape our interdependency with one another.
You better listen, my sisters and brothers, 'cause if you do, you can hear their voices still calling across the year. And they're crying across the ocean, and they're crying across the land, and and they will, till we all understand. None of us are free. None of us are free. None of us are free. One of us are chained. None of us are free. And there are people still in darkness, and they just can't see the light. And if you don't say it's wrong, that says it's right. We got to try to feel each other. Let our brothers know that we care. Got to get the message, send it out loud and clear. None of us are free. None of us are free. None of us are free. One of us are chained. None of us are free. It's a simple truth we all need, just to hear and see. None of us are free. One of us is chained. None of us are free. Now I swear your salvation isn't too hard to find. None of us can find it on our own. We got to join together in spirit, heart, and mind, so that every soul who's suffering can know we're not alone. None of us are free. None of us are free. None of us are free. One of us are chained. None of us are free. If you just look around you, you're gonna see what I say. 'Cause the world is getting smaller each passing day. Now it's time to start making changes, and it's time for us to realize that the truth is shining bright before our eyes. None of us are free. None of us are free. None of us are free. One of us are chained. None of us are free. 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 One of us are chained. None of us are free. 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 One of us are chained. None of us are free.
I love that song, None of Us Are Free. It really speaks to this kind of reckoning that we are in, this invitation to recognize our interconnectedness with one another. Martin Luther King, when he spoke from the Birmingham jail, he wrote that letter. His letter from Birmingham jail was as much an address to his fellow white clergy, sisters and brothers, to come out and to speak in favor of this movement at the time, to recognize the common humanity and common shared destiny that everyone has, regardless of skin, color, of race or creed, or orientation for that matter. There's this shared common destiny that we continually having to reckon with. And when we don't reckon with it, things come apart at the seams, right? The way that Rumi, the 15th century mystic, Middle Eastern mystic, wrote, he said, out beyond ideas of right and wrong doing, there's a field, and that's where I'll meet you. How do we get past this binary? How do we recognize it's something bigger than that, it's something else? Remember that joke I used to tell? That it's the guy that goes into the bar, and he's new to the community, so he wants to kind of get an idea of who he's dealing with. And so he goes into the bar and just decides to throw it out there and get a sense of who these people are, what these people are like. So he says to everyone in the bar, he says, every last Democrat is a horse's butt. Well, the whole place mobs him. They grab him, they beat him up, and they throw him out in the street. And he brushes himself off. He's bruised and hurt, but now he smiles to himself because he says, all right, I know who I'm dealing with. So he goes in the next day, much more confident of who the people are. And he looks at the whole crowd and he laughs and he says, right, every last Republican is a horse's butt. And then to his surprise, the whole crowd mobs him again. They beat him up and they throw him out in the street. And now he's really confused. He's shaking himself and he brushes off the dust when he sees two guys coming out. And the tourist says, who are you people? And the two guys say, you don't get it, mister. This is horse country. Right. Out beyond ideas, there is a bigger picture. How do we get past binary ways of seeing things? Identity politics, polarization. It's become such an ingrained culture wars. It's all become such an ingrained part of our identity. It's like we are like Velcro. We're just connected to these ways of identifying ourselves as opposed to and against others. But Jesus, when he told his parables, he disrupted all of that. I mean, we did this series, Linda and I did this series at the beginning of all of this. I think it was called Disruptions, Parables, and Pandemics. And we looked at Jesus' parables. They weren't simply to disrupt the leadership, the priests and the Pharisees and the leadership of the temple, which often ostracized and marginalized and oppressed so many others within their own Jewish community and faith. It wasn't simply to disrupt that. It wasn't saying you're just wrong. It would often disrupt his listeners' viewpoints as well. Because his whole point was shalom is a process of being together, a common good, a common way of compassion and understanding and justice and right relationship with one another, God, and all of creation. How does that happen unless we can get out beyond ideas and right and wrong? So lesson one then that we might take away from 2020 and take into 2021. Lesson one might be that we will find more truth and more connective healing when we learn to reframe the conversations. When we learn to reframe them in a way that sees with wider perspectives, with more grace and mercy and more forgiveness. We're all in this together. When we can begin to recognize ways out beyond the binaries, then we begin to open up to the path to shalom.
High time we made a stand and shook up the views of the common man in the little train. Right from coast to coast, DJ's the man we love the most. Could you be squeaky clean? Smash every hope of democracy. It's the headline, says you're free to choose. There's egg on your face and mud on your shoes. One of these days we're gonna call it the blues, yeah. Anything is possible. Sowing the seeds of love. Anything is possible. Sowing the seeds of love. I spy tears in their eyes. They look to the skies for some kind of divine intervention. Food goes to waste. So nice to eat, so nice to taste. Politician granny with your high ideals and you no idea how the majority feels. So without love and a promised land, we're fools to the rules of the government plan. Kick out the style, bring back the change. Sowing the seeds, the birds and the bees, the girlfriend and me. talk about. If you're worried, man, shout about. Open hearts, feel about. Open minds, think about it. Everyone, read about it. Everyone, scream about it. Everyone, read about it, read about it. Read it in the books, in the crannies, in the nooks, there are books to read. Sowing the seeds, oh yeah. Sowing the seeds of love. Sowing the seeds of love. Sowing the seeds of love. Mr. England sowing the seeds of love. Time to eat all your words, swallow your pride. High time for me to stand, shook up the news of the common man in the love train, rides from coast to coast, every minute of every hour. I love the sunflower. I believe in love power, love power, and love power. Oh, sowing the seeds. We're sowing the seeds. Sowing the seeds of love. Sowing the seeds. Sowing the seeds into need and the politics of greed.
I woke up to the morning sky first. Baby blue just like we rehearsed. When I get up off this ground, I shake leaves back down to the brown, 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 till I'm clean. Then I walk where I'd be shaded by the trees, by a meadow of green, for about a mile. I'm headed to town, town, town in style, with all my favorite colors, yes sir, all my favorite colors, right on. My sisters and my brothers, see them like no other, all my favorite colors. It's a good day to be, a good day for me, a good day to see my favorite colors, colors. My sisters and my brothers. along right. We gon' ooh, 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 yeah. It sounds like ooh, 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 yeah. The least I can say, I anticipate a homecoming parade as we renegade in the morning. Right. With all my favorite colors. Yes, sir. All my favorite colors. Yes, ma'am. My sisters and my brothers see 'em like no other. All my favorite colors. Right, all my favorite colors. Right. All my favorite colors. Yes, ma'am. My sisters and my brothers see 'em like no other. All my favorite colors. It's a good day to be, a good day for me. It's a good day to see my favorite colors. Colors. My sisters and my brothers see 'em like no other. Oh, my favorite colors.
That is those are two of my favorite videos of all the videos that Brad and the band have done. And they're so amazing. They're just in their distinctiveness and in what they capture in terms of the narrative of what we're dealing with right now and the hope of what we're dealing with. Brad was recently honored with a grant from the Resilience, let's see, what's the name of it? It was Sounds of Resilience, Sounds of Resilience organization, which honored maybe a dozen or 2 dozen musicians in our larger area who are exhibiting real creativity of resilience and improvisation and dealing with gig economies in a time of economic distress, really. And Brad has done that in a way that captures sort of the narrative of our time, especially with that video and so many of the others that we're seeing. So thanks so much for that, Brad, and congratulations on receiving that grant. Also, thanks so much to Joseph Veazey for joining us, the singer from Dallas, on that song Colors, which also captures where we are right now. The third lesson that I want to share with you really is this idea that came to mind from, I did a series called Peace in the Broken, Living in the Question, where I interviewed 6 people. And it was really inspired by Elizabeth's song, Peace in the Broken. She has this wonderful chorus line. It goes like this: there's peace in the broken, there's peace in the fall. And when your heart is open, it's not empty at all. That's the challenge, the idea I think that it speaks to is this third lesson, which is sometimes the places that break open for us, the places in which our lives are broken open, that is the place that opens the path for the next thing. The invitation is to move into that brokenness, right? To move into that with openness and with courage, and then to allow us to learn what the next best thing is. But the challenge with brokenness is back to the other idea, which is to retreat into this binary way of being, to align with our tribes or to find solace in others, but to kind of run from the anxiety, from the fear. And it is a challenge. It's very difficult to, when we are broken open, to face that openness, that vulnerability. But as many of the stories in our interviews had shown, that was the place where the real transformation began. And when they look back on their own narratives and their own faith stories, where that being broken open really invited a much richer, a much more diverse, a much more open and merciful and graceful way of seeing and being and experiencing the world. The next song that Brad does is this song "Modern Love." What a beautiful song! It really captures the messiness, right? Because the temptation is to idolize, pedestalize certain ideas like marriage, like love, like church, like God, to put them up there on sort of this pedestal where we can sort of worship them, and yet we're not really engaged with the messiness of them. And so Modern Love speaks to that messiness, but it does so with such a lively, danceable beat. And then to top that off, Brad does it dancing in the rain. And then it's followed by a song that's one of my favorite songs. Elizabeth Wills covers it by Alanis Morissette, and called "Thank You." How do we come to appreciate even the brokenness? What Rumi said, the guest house. This life is a guest house. Even when the bad things come, even when the meanness, even when the depression comes, invite them in, because they are opening us up to some new way of seeing.
I know when to go out. I know when to stand. Get things done. I catch the paper, boy, but things don't really change. I'm standing in the wind, but I never read my mind. But I try. I try. There's no sign of life, it's just the power to charm. I'm lying in the rain, but I never read bye-bye. But I try, I'm never gonna fall for walks beside me, walks on by. I can't speak to the church on time. Terrifies me, makes me party. I put my trust in God and man. No connection, no religion. I don't believe in modern love. It's not really work, it's just the power to charm. Still standing in the wind, but I never read bye-bye. But I try. I'm never gonna fall for walks beside me, walks on by. I can't speak to the church on time. Terrifies me, makes me party. I put my trust in God and man. No confession, no religion. I don't believe in modern love.
I'm out of breath.
Yeah, man, that was good.
Oh, yes, good work, y'all.
How about getting off of these antibiotics? How about stopping eating when I'm full up? How about them transparent dangling carrots? How about that ever elusive kudo? Thank you, India. Thank you, terror. Thank you, disillusionment. Thank you, frailty. Thank you, consequence. Thank you, silence. How about me not blaming you for everything? How about me enjoying the moment for once? How about how good it feels to finally forgive you? How about grieving it all one at a time? Thank you, India. Thank you, terror. Thank you, disillusionment. Thank you, frailty. Thank you, consequence. Thank you, silence. The moment I let go of it was the moment I got more than I could handle. The moment I stepped off of it was the moment that I touched down. How about no longer being masochistic? How about remembering your divinity? How about unabashedly bawling your eyes out? How about not equating death with stopping? Thank you, India. Thank you, Providence. Thank you, disillusionment. Thank you, nothingness. Thank you, clarity. Thank you, silence. Yeah, yeah. Oh,
Elizabeth, thank you for that song. I don't know how you all feel about that. That's one of my favorite songs of the whole season. It just almost brings me to tears every time I see it and listen to it. And your voice, Elizabeth, it just carries that song so beautifully. But what I love about it is this idea that it segues so beautifully into my final lesson. Lesson number 3, takeaway from 2020 into 21. It's this idea that certainty is overrated. That in fact, maybe our practice, maybe our faith ought to be about how do we better cultivate uncertainty. in intentional ways. How do we cultivate the uncertainty that we live within? And I realize that goes against the grain for us neurologically, at least in terms of evolution. It goes against the grain because we're evolved to sort of protect ourselves, right? We're evolved to sort of seek predictability, to sort of seek a homeostasis, a comfort, a way of being in comfort most of the time. So we don't like things to be unfamiliar. We don't like things to be unpredictable. We like the predictability of life. And of course, 2020 has been anything but predictable. Linda and I go for walks every day now, and we especially like walking in unfamiliar places because they're unfamiliar, and we have to pay attention more in those places. You know, we have to kind of look around. It's more interesting, but we also have to pay attention to where we're walking, and we see new people, which is kind of fun because it broadens our sense of connectivity to be with these people we don't know. So one day we're walking and it's getting kind of towards dusk, and we see this guy coming down the sidewalk on the other side of the street, and he starts to trip on a raised part of the sidewalk, which is what, you know, you're always watching for in some of these older neighborhoods. And so the sidewalk catches him, but we were fascinated as we saw that he, in one fluid motion, as he caught his right foot on the sidewalk, his left foot leapt into the air, and then he just moved into a run, a sprint. And he ran for about 30 feet. It was really funny. He just kind of caught himself and started running for about 30 feet and then went to walking again. As if the whole thing had been planned, as if he'd just been walking along and thinking, boo, I think I'll take a sprint. And then he sprinted and then stopped and continued to walk. We both laughed because of how quickly he was thinking on his feet, so to speak. But we also laughed because we started talking about this idea of what it's like to fall and how we don't like falling. Because falling throws us into this place of unpredictability. So we try to catch ourselves. We try to right the situation as best we can. So if we're going to fall, we try to catch ourselves on our feet. But we're thinking quick, and if we fall, we're going to try to at least catch our hands. It's instinctive. We put our hands out. But I thought we were thinking about it metaphorically too, because if we find ourselves falling all the time, sometimes the carpet literally being yanked out from under us, the rug being pulled out. But what we try to do is, in situations of complete unpredictability, we try to at least fall on our faith, or we try to at least fall on something that we think of as dependable. We fall on our tribe, on the communities that think like us. We fall there when things feel insecure, or we fall on a friend when we feel we feel thrown out of balance, thrown off balance by someone else, someone at work, or something someone said to us. We feel jealous, or we feel ashamed, and so we fall on a friend to try to feel right again, to try to feel a sense of balance, to try to feel okay. And I'm suggesting to you that certainty is overrated, but instead the possibilities of what we can cultivate in uncertainty can bring us to a place of a deeper sense of spirituality, a deeper sense of wellness. If you read in the Psalms in 139, the psalmist says in 139, no matter where you fall, no matter how far you fall, no matter how deep you fall, no matter how much life falls apart around you, the sacred, we are embraced within the sacred, and the sacred within us. We are indistinguishable from the reality of the divine, the Imago Dei, the sacred God, whatever label you want to put on it. We rest in this reality, even in uncertainty. And it made me think of the creation story, where God creates the earth, the world in 7 days or 6 days, and rests on the seventh. And we always think of it as, now it's kind of a silly mythical story, or as I like to say, a make-believe story. It's a profound myth, though. And looking back at it, I realize there's something else going on there that I missed. And I'm seeing it now through these eyes, through this filter of uncertainty, through this, what I want to now call my 2020 vision of uncertainty. I like the irony of that. And as I look at that, I realize that story is about something else completely different. The creation story begins in uncertainty. And all of these things for 6 days are created out of uncertainty. The possibilities that are there when we find ourselves in this broken open, in this confusing and chaotic place. Out of this chaotic stuff comes something good, as the story says. And on the seventh day, God rests. And I'm thinking, God doesn't need a nap. What's the rest all about? And then it occurred to me, the rest is the place we find ourselves in when we have let go of the need for certainty and instead have found the motivation and the desire to create in times of uncertainty. That's what we are invited into. And I think that's what 2020 invites us to take into 2021. To let go of the need for certainty and to begin to practice this way of being amazed, of finding delight. One other quick little image. Some months ago, I started taking leftover cat food because that was left in the cat's bowl at night. And I just started throwing it out into the far part of the yard because the raccoons and the possums were coming up and tearing up the porch and getting into the cat food. So if there was any left over, I just threw it to the farthest part of the yard. Well, one morning I was working on the porch and I noticed a couple of women walking their dogs. And as their dogs were coming toward each other, about 10 feet away, they were out there by that further part of the yard. And the dogs started pulling at the chain toward each other, kind of growling. And you could see it concerned the two women. And they didn't know whether to just walk across the street or whatever. But in that instant, both dogs must have picked up the scent of the cat food in the grass. And they both turned and went toward the grass and started nibbling and rooting to find the delight, so to speak. And as they enjoyed their findings, the two women found it more an opportunity to talk with each other for a moment and laughed about the whole thing. And what was surprising is that after the dogs got filled with that, they were finished with that, they just passed each other. They just walked on past each other. That initial sense of aggressiveness that was inborn in them, that's a part of their biology, right? That had been sidestepped by delight. What an interesting idea. I think that's what God is. I think God is delight. Always waiting in every moment, and especially in times of uncertainty, inviting us to create out of those moments. And as Mary Oliver would say, then to start telling people about it. I hope you have a beautiful new year, and so good to be with you again. We've got 2 amazing songs coming up to close us out. I look forward to seeing you in the near future.
Ring the bells, it's time I mean it. Bid the hatred fare thee well. Give back the pieces of my Jesus. Take your counterfeit to hell. Bang the drums, this means war. Not the kind you're waiting for. We say mercy won't be rationed here. That's what we're fighting for. You've been hiding for so long behind your statues and your steeples. Does that hit too close to home? I got faith to move a mountain and to watch that mountain move. It's time for words to fall like thunder, sound of justice breaking through. Spirit loving more than what there is loving even more. Lord, let's send heart to sing the glory through the Calvary. Ring the bells, ring the bells, ring the bells, ring the bells. Calling boys to the sun, and I ain't the only one. Was in the throne room of a kingdom where I found that I belong. I ain't scared to face a fortress I've seen him fall before. With broken bones you built it, but it crumbles board by board. Spirit loving more than what there is loving even more. We keep singing loud enough, we'll keep on adding voices up. Ring the bells, 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 ring the bells. This time I mean it. Bid the hatred fare thee well. Give back the pieces of my Jesus. Take your counterfeit to hell. church last Sunday so I could sing and pray. But something quite unusual happened on that day. The church, it started right on time, just like it does without a doubt. Everything was all just fine, except when it came time to let us out. Though the preacher, he kept preaching, he told us, I have one more thing to say. Children, before you think of leave, you better think about the judgment day. And everyone got nervous, everyone was hungry too. Everyone was wondering what was the next thing he would do. And the preacher, he kept preaching. He said, I'll remind you, if I may, you all better pay attention, or I might decide to preach all day. Everyone was getting so hungry. Old ones started feeling ill, and weak ones started passing out. Young ones, they could not sit still, and the preacher's voice rose higher. So I snuck up to the balcony and I crept into the choir. I begged them, brothers, sisters, help me please. I said, when I give you the signal, I said, when I raise up my head, won't you join with me together now? Praise the Lord, I have a plan. And the preacher, he kept preaching. Long is the struggle, hard to fight. I prayed, Father, please forgive me. And I stood up and with all my might sang to the Lord, the praises be. It's time for dinner now, let's go eat. We got some beans and some good cornbread. Now listen to what the preacher said. To the Lord, the praises be. It's time for dinner now, let's go eat. Yes, and I did give the signal. Yes, and I raise up my hands. Then join with me the choir. Yes, every woman, child, and man to sing to the Lord, the praises be. It's time for dinner now, let's go eat. We got some beans and some good cornbread. Now listen to what the preacher said. Sing to the Lord, the praises be. It's time for dinner now, let's go eat. And the preacher, he stopped preaching, and a hush the church did fill. And then a great white dove from up above landed on the windowsill. And a duck flew right beside him, and a fork appeared in his hand. And with everybody watching, the preacher ate that bird right there and then. Everyone got really nervous, and the preacher, he did start to glow. And as we watched on in disbelief, these were the words he spoke.
You know, Mama's in the kitchen, she's been there all day, and I know she's cooking something good, so let's bow our heads and pray.
And I sang to the Lord, praises be. It's time for dinner now, let's go eat. We got some beans and some good cornbread. Now listen to what the preacher said. Say it to the Lord, let praises be. It's time for dinner now, let's go eat. And the moral of the story, children, it is plain but true. God knows if a preacher preaches long enough, even he'll get hungry too. And he'll sing to the Lord, let praises be. It's time for dinner now, let's go eat. We got some beans and some good cornbread. Now listen to what the preacher says. Say to the Lord, let praises be. It's time for dinner now, let's go eat. So we got some beans and some good cornbread. Now listen to what the preacher said. Say to the Lord, let praises be. It's time for dinner now, let's go eat. We got some beans and some good cornbread.
Listen to what the preacher said.